educate, empower, enable, impact. Thank you for tuning in to That Will Never Work podcast, where we share inspiring information and personal experiences related to business and the entrepreneurial journey from those who are leaders in their respective field. Now, here's your host, author and business coach, Maurice.
I thank you very much for tuning in today. I have a vet, with us today. Thank you for your service, sir. But he is also a renowned thought leader. He is most known as the best-selling author of The Smartest Person in the Room, which explores the limitations of seeking validation through achievement and the desire to be the brightest intellect in any room. Maybe we'll touch on that a little bit, some of his business ventures and things like that, but with a deep desire to inspire others to harness their innate wisdom, overcome perceived barriers, and summon the courage to tread new paths. He's also authored his latest book, The In Between Life and the Micro. This book chronicles his remarkable transformation from a me against the world mindset cultivating during his tumultuous upbringing to his evolution as a compassionate global citizen committed to uplifting humanity. I thank y'all very much for listening today. I thank y'all for tuning in, and I would like to welcome Christian to the mic. Christian, thank you very much for coming to the show.
Yeah, thank you, Maurice, for having me. Appreciate the intro there.
No problem. So, I did my research and I listened to, some of your other episodes and, interviews and things like that. And, you're a triathlon, athlete, and, you've jumping out of planes and, all these type of things, right? But what I'm getting at is with that, taking risk. And a lot of us don't like taking risk. So what really encouraged you to kind of step outside the box to start taking risks and fulfilling a little bit more of your life, or to better fulfill all your life's adventures or dreams or whatever it might be?
I think life ultimately is about taking risk. If you're not taking a risk, you're sort of taking a risk by living a comfortable, maybe boring life. So I like to step outside my comfort zone. And I feel like the more things I do, the more risk I take with starting a business, jumping out of an airplane, whatever, then it makes me more comfortable with being uncomfortable. And the risk I do take there's things you can do to mitigate those risks or reduce the risk, like jumping out of an airplane. You can be trained, jump at the right altitude, deploy your parachute at the right altitude, have, backup parachute, wear a helmet, have 2 altimeters and, different things. So business, if you have the right business plan, you can reduce the risk. So a lot of people think when they think of risk, they think it's just, doing something crazy, but there are things you can do to reduce that risk. But for me, that's what life is about, taking those chances and the risks. You only get so many swings, right? And I want to take as many as I can.
So one of the things that, and we're going to relate this to your book, the smartest person in the room idea, right? And I'm saying that because putting yourself in a place where you're no longer the smartest person puts you at risk, doesn't it? Because as entrepreneurs, a lot of times, or even if we are working our 9 to 5 and we are a manager or whatever else, sometimes we are very uncomfortable with someone else being a little bit smarter than us, because of our ego or whatever else. Oh, how have you been able to flip the script a little bit of not having to deal with that ego piece and dealing with that smartest person idea?
I think that growing a business forced me to deal with that. I think a business is sort of personal development wrapped in the context of, growing your business, because a business is only going to grow as much as the founder, the leader of the business. That's my opinion, that the business is a reflection of you. So for me, with my first business, I had to go through this transformation. I was doing all the work myself, doing the sales, doing the marketing, doing the accounting, and I was pretty good at it, but I realized I can only do so much. I'm only one person. So I need to hire other people to help. and I need to get people that can do it as good as me, if not better. And I had to make that, that jump. And if
Mhm.
people were better than me, then that ultimately helped my business because they could do things much more efficiently. They could take
Mm.
agency over that area of the business and help that area grow in ways that I couldn't do or ways I couldn't
Mhm.
see because I have my own, blinders and lens I look at the world through. So it's really trying to grow the business, I think, is really what made me want to surround myself by people smarter than me. But
Mhm.
because before that, I had a little bit of a complex where my ego,
Mm.
got in the way. And I think we all create these identities for ourselves. We make
Mhm.
up our own identity. And for me and a lot of people in cybersecurity and high tech industries,
Mhm.
we feel significant by being, quote, smarter than somebody else. But when you always try to be smarter than someone else, it kind of limits your life. There's a glass ceiling over
Mm.
you. And that's what I had going on. So I had to let go of my ego and shift my identity. Because, like I like to say, your ego is not your amigo.
So with that comes a level of trust, right? So,
Mhm.
again, this is our baby. Like you said, you're one man band type thing, and you trust yourself. You know what you can do. Whatever else. So, how were you able to trust somebody with your baby? Now, I did hear some things that you had some learning curves, if you will, with your first business, right?
Yeah.
So, but what made you start putting your baby and trusting into someone else's hands?
It's a hard leap. For me, I had to have the systems in place so I can
Mm.
trust somebody is doing something. But as Ronald Reagan once said, trust but verify. So if someone is on my sales team and they're making calls and
Mm.
they're reaching out to prospects, we have HubSpot, so I can go and check to see if they're doing it. For
Mm.
instance,
Mm.
I don't always check, but there needs to be a checks and balances, and it's also from an accountability perspective. If people know they're being held accountable, they're
Mhm.
going to do the job better. So that there's that aspect, but it's also finding the right people.
Mhm.
I used to hire people very quickly based on their certifications or their degree, and like right now, I don't care about that. I hire people on their
Mm.
cultural fit,
Hmm.
much more than a degree or certification. I could care less to have a degree or certification. It's really their cultural fit. Do their values align with mine? And like you said, can I trust this person? And then also, do they have the right attitude and the right aptitude? That's what matters most to me.
So I think you said something that's very, very interesting because all of us that's been to school, went to school, all those type of things, we have this idea that we need to have a degree, like you said, certification, whatever else. And that seemed like that's pretty risky unto itself. But, what made you change? How is that a defining moment to change from saying, hey, I need someone with all the letters behind their name versus, hey, how do you fit with me and my culture? Because that's different. That's interesting to hear.
Yeah, with my first cybersecurity business that I built and sold, there was a moment where I was having a lot of difficulty with a lot of fronts, and I kind of zoomed out. I looked at my company and I realized 99.9% of the problems I was having in my
Hmm.
company were because my staff didn't have the same values I did. So the things that
Mm.
I inherently believed and saw the world, my lens of the world, they didn't see the world the same way.
Hmm.
So then I established core values, and then I measured people, rated their performance based on how they adhered to those core values. And I had to let some people go. And then I started hiring people based on those core values. I'd ask them questions in the interview about those core values and about their emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I used to just hire based on, like I said, the technical aptitude, but my problems were the core value alignment my staff didn't have,
Hmm.
and my staff were super highly rationally intelligent, but they lacked the people skills. And
Mm.
we were a service industry, so we deal with clients, and if my staff is talking over the client's head because they want to be quote smarter than the client's not going to feel appreciated or understood,
Right.
and it didn't help with collaboration on my team either. So once
Hmm.
I made that shift, I realized, these degrees, these certifications, they don't really matter.
Mm.
And plus, I taught college for quite a
Mm.
while,
Hmm.
and I taught master's level and bachelor's level classes. And the students in the class, from my, like, I would say 80% of them did not care about the career. They just they wanted a checkbox. They didn't actually care about the homework. They didn't care about learning the subject. So then they think they have the checkbox, they're going to get a job. And they're what I call paper tigers, or people that have, they're basically a tiger that's made of paper. It's like it's all growl, but there's nothing behind them, right? Because they have the certification and the degree.
So you make an interesting point about the checkbox, because a lot of us have these goals, these destinations, right? That we're trying to check off our list, our bucket list type things. Excuse me. And sometimes because of what we're taught in school, elementary school, high school, you got to get a job. You got to, get this degree, because like you said, that's a checkbox that we've put out there in our culture, that say, hey, we need this in order to do this. And I think that your message is a little different, is contrary to what we've been taught. I'm 48 years old. I've been hearing I need a degree all my life. So so it's very interesting to hear you say that, because that's something that's not spoken about. That's different.
Yeah, like two of the best people, the first people I hired on my team, what was appealing to me about them was clarity. They had crystal clear clarity on what they wanted to do with their life and their career. And they were passionate about it. Like one guy, I hired him, I think when he was 19, to be a penetration tester or ethical hacker. And he didn't have a degree. He was working on like learning the stuff, but he was super motivated and he knew that's what he wanted to do with his life. And I would rather have somebody that knows where they want to be in 5 years with crystal clear clarity than someone that has a degree and just wants a job. So that was a driving factor for me. And then I have an MBA, so I'm not, someone that doesn't have a degree. But when I think about my MBA, I probably used maybe 5% of that or less in my entrepreneur journey. So it really didn't matter, in my opinion. Didn't help me.
That's funny. And so even listening to you talk about that one individual that you hired that was crystal clear, it's different, because a lot of times we get, and we see it in culture across the board, hey, you could do a little bit of anything and everything and be whimsical and dance through the daffodils, all those type of things. So you're not really focused. You're not really concentrating on one space. As you talked about even earlier about being an entrepreneur, hey, you could do everything, but until you focus, that's when you become great, or better, depending on your language. So I think that is also interesting, because we don't foster that. Focus on one thing and do great in that, and then move on to the next. So I think that's an interesting point as well.
Yeah, I think we should be focusing on doing one thing and making it the big thing, and just only do that thing, because that's mastery. It's hard to master something when you're doing like 15 different things. And this is something I had to realize myself, because I used to be, doing 15 things myself. And in my first cybersecurity business, we did cybersecurity training, we did auditing, we did penetration testing, we did lots of different services. And I realized that by offering all these services, my messaging was being diluted. So right now in my new cybersecurity business, we focus purely on medical device cybersecurity. That's our niche. So by focusing on one thing and getting really, really good at it, we're more in demand, and we can speak much more articulately about the client's needs and understand that market a lot better. And I think it's that way with anything. Like for me, if I focus really hard on one thing for a long period of time, I can make a lot of progress. I believe in this thing called monotasking, doing one thing with concentrated effort, versus multitasking, which we've been brainwashed to do, which makes you very busy, multitasking, but not very productive. Monotasking can make you very productive.
So as an entrepreneur, a lot of times, especially in our first business, we try to cover a little bit of everything, like you mentioned. We think that, hey, we're going to be in this one topic. We're going to cover a little bit of everything so we can bring in clients or whatever it is. But a lot of times we don't as you discussed, we don't drill it down. I have some nonprofit organizations that I assist with, and they're trying to cover the whole community's needs. And unfortunately, you're missing
Yeah.
the whole point. So I think
Mhm.
that's a very interesting and very important part for us to do, is to really drill down to what our strengths are, and not just mine, but maybe the team or whatever it is. Because a lot of times we don't evaluate that very well either.
Yeah, and from a business perspective, for me, niching down into a blue ocean where there's not a lot of competitors is what I want to do. Because if I can become a market leader in a very niched industry
Mm-hmm.
and get really good at something, we can be more efficient. So our margins will increase
Mm-hmm.
and we'll get more business ultimately, because we're known as the people that solve a specific problem
Mm-hmm.
versus somebody that solves 1,000 problems, but they don't do them very well.
Hmm. Yeah, and I
And
think that.
it's counterintuitive. As a business owner, my first business, it, it's it's counterintuitive to want to niche down because you want to take revenue. So someone says, "Hey, I need help with this audit," and you're like, "Well, we kind of do an audit like that, but we
Mm-hmm.
need the revenue, so let's do it anyway." Ultimately, those things become distractions, though,
Mm-hmm.
and they distract you from really getting good at one thing. And it took me a while to realize that. I didn't realize it too much in my first business.
Mm-hmm.
Towards until the end of the business, right before I sold it, I started niching down quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I'm doing with this one, trying to do things different and better.
So I know for myself, it's taken me a while to niche down, to understand what my real strengths are, because again,
Hmm.
I want to try to service, like I give you an example for myself. I had a client that wanted to do 3 or 4 different things. I realized like, hey, well, I kind of know this, I kind of know that, whatever. So I kind of started to spread myself too thin, realize I'm not being effective in any of the above.
Hmm.
I might have had an idea, and I can kind of get it done, but I wasn't able to move the needle, whether it's for myself or for them. And a lot of times looking in the mirror is really difficult for us to do. I.e., look, checking our ego, understanding when we need to, when we need to diversify, not diversify, whatever it is. I think a lot of times looking in that mirror is really difficult for us to do.
It is, but it's necessary. Like
Mm-hmm.
for me, when I sold my first cybersecurity business, I decided to get into real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And I did real estate for a while, but I didn't know what I was doing. It's like a new career, a new industry. And then I'm like, I've already got like a lot of experience in cybersecurity. So why not start a new cybersecurity business and capitalize on what I learned from the first one?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to look at my investments in real estate. Granted, the economy's in a weird state,
Mm-hmm.
but a couple of my properties I was losing money and short-term rental. So I'm selling those properties,
Mm-hmm.
but I had to like you said, look at zoom out and reflect and look in where I was with everything. And it's not always easy. It's not
Mm-hmm.
easy to admit like I'm losing money in these properties that I made a mistake, but I got to do something about it. But it's inevitable because I'm
Mm-hmm.
new to the game of real estate, where I'm not new to the game of cybersecurity. So I'm going to go through that learning curve, and it's going to take a lot of time to master it. So trying to do both at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
or three things at the same time, you're not going to make as much progress. So right now, I'm focused, only on my cybersecurity business. I'm writing the book, but it's about cybersecurity and my
Mm-hmm.
business. So I'm really hyper focused because I feel like in my last company, I had too many distractions.
Mm-hmm.
Even doing like adventure races or Ironman triathlon,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things pulling me in a different direction, and I lost that concentrated focus of moving the company forward faster.
Hmm.
And I'm trying to move this company forward faster by being more focused and more niche down, and that includes other areas of my life. I'm not distracted with other things going on in my life either.
So before I let you go, I have one other question, right? So what do you think out of all these things that we discussed? Because we discussed a lot of different things, a lot of pivotal moments, right? So
Mhm.
what do you think will be the most defining moment in your career through all these things?
I think the biggest defining moment, I've had a lot of them. Probably the biggest one was I was working a 9 to 5 job as a
Mm-hmm.
VP in a company, and I had a run-in with the CEOs, this consistent kind of friction,
Mm.
and I just decided at that point to quit the job without having any other job lined up. So that was a defining moment for me because it kind of put me on the entrepreneur path. I decided to quit that job, reach out to my contacts, and do freelance work. So I did freelance work for a while, and then I built up my first company later. But actually taking something that seemed like it was not a pleasant event was actually a blessing in disguise, because I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't have the courage to do it. So that kind of forced me into becoming an entrepreneur.
Wow, Christian, I appreciate that. So listen, where can someone reach out to you, so they can, understand where they need to go to, harness their power, harness that idea of entrepreneurship, even harness the idea of, hey, you know what, this is not working for me. I need to be in a better culture, whatever it is, right? So where can they reach out to you and find you and hear what's going on with you?
Yeah, they can go to my website, christianespinoza.com, or LinkedIn, or my company website, bluegoatcyber.com.
Okay. All right. And so also, where can they find your books? My
books are on Amazon. They're also on Audible if you'll want to listen to, audiobooks instead. Yep.
Okay. All right, cool. So Christian, I thank you very much for coming on the show today. But I got to ask you my question, man. I got to ask you the question. Well, would you rather question? Would you rather choose 3 doors or a fork in the road?
I'd rather choose a fork in the road.
And why the fork?
So I think when you have more than 2 options, we overthink things. So a fork is very simple. I'm going to pick the left or the right. Just pick one and go with it. When there's 3 doors, we like, should I pick this one, the one in the middle, the one on the left? It's like people get paralyzed by the options.
Yes.
So even if I had 3 doors, I'd pick one very quickly. I like to make decisions quickly.
Oh, okay. And it's
but
funny.
A fork is easier,
and a lot of people, they want more options. There's a few that wants more options, and because I didn't have a parameters, of course, you could have chosen all 3 doors if you really wanted to. But sometimes I think what you're saying, like, we can get that paralysis by analysis idea, because we're trying to analyze which door is the best one, this, that, and the other. Like you said, the fork is right, wrong, left, right. I could always double back. It's a little easy.
Yeah, exactly. If you go the wrong direction, as long as you're looking at it, you can always alter the direction you're going. You may have to go off the road for a while, across like the field or whatever, but that's part of life.
Right.
Rarely do we take a straight line to success or to the perfect relationship or the perfect health or the perfect wealth. It's pretty like back and forth. At least my life has been. I've been unable to have a straight, perfect line to like achieve my objective.
I understand. 'Cause I'm in the same boat, bro. I'll be honest. Well, Chris, I thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you, Maurice. I appreciate it.
No problem. And I thank y'all for listening to That Will Never Work podcast. Of course, all the information will be in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening. I will talk to y'all a little later.
Thanks for listening. Find us on social media at Chisholm Group LLC and check back weekly for new episodes. Until next time, that will never work, or will it?